y'all have a wonderful night. You guys are all set.
How do you? How do you set it so the camera is what goes on? Like live, the YouTube? That you put symbols on the screen?
Big question. I have already something.
Oh, no, we're.
I mean, it's just the other one.
Yeah.
Access to the outside, but.
For the election, it probably makes sense.
Well, you guys have a good night. I hope everything was well. Thank you.
It is too.
Yeah, I get into the certain things as it's shutting down. No, you're not.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, no kidding. I said no, and that's. All right, so the agenda's already out. I'm already ready for the next meeting, because we have another meeting coming in here at 7.
Right.
So hopefully we can get done. I want to have it, keep it Phil sitting where Phil's sitting. And that's his spot. There is one in the podium.
Oh, that's.
Well, I've got to steal them up. There's got to be one in here. There's, oh, here. If that one works better. Yeah, here you go. You're good as gold.
Sounds like there's a meeting in here.
There is. Lindsay Dana neighborhood.
So, you know?
Which one? They should.
Front door.
How many of these items are gonna need motions? Resolution, I'm sure will.
Solution will.
Board,
Splash pad will. Water utility staffing will.
work for the Fireman's Park.
Yeah, those next three. All those awards will.
Good development, that's just
No, those last two don't.
these are them.
That's the first one.
Oh, resolution plan. So what you want to definitely that one?
That's what Perry wants. Items, a lot of public input to go first.
I don't know which Bergen County, it's like 12 months.
That's usually what happens.
Try a semi-trailer. Actually, both houses.
Wait, where?
Good, happened to be.
Got a mic on over here.
Okay, so 5:30 PM, we're going to call this meeting of the Public Works and Highway Committee to order. Call to order. Attendance shows that all committee members are present. I'll entertain approval of the minutes from July 3rd, please.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
Any comments, changes on the minutes? I just noticed in one place my name was spelled with an E at the end instead of an I, but other than that, I'm not going to make a big deal out of that. Then we will, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on to public comment, for anybody in the audience that would like to come up and talk, please come to the microphone and give us your name and address, and we'll listen to what you have to say.
Okay, good evening. Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
For a change.
Okay.
Sometimes it just doesn't.
I just need to speak into it more, I think. At the Plan Commission, there was an application that was removed from Monday's meeting due to from the Green Hills people who are trying to purchase a property, and I don't remember the address, but I think you guys know which one I'm talking about. The whole situation seems to have boiled down to the fact that the Plan Commission people didn't really know how to address the situation, and in part because of the findings with the Quick Trip property and the wellhead protection. There's some sort of further research that needs to happen. From what I'm hearing, the chemicals, which are not hazardous according to the information that the Green Hills people were talking about, does not meet or does not require some of the conditions that apparently the Plan Commission was putting on them. So I was hoping that you guys would do everything that you could to speed up the research and the review of that to get them an answer, because they're in they've put a lot of money into the building. They have to close sometime in September, and it would be helpful. They're a good business, they're decent people. So whatever you can possibly do, that would be great. The second thing I have is on the tree and the development standards that you're going through tonight. I think they're great, love it. I would highly recommend that you take these to the Plan Commission and get on the agenda and give them this information. They do not follow any kind of standards for layout. They don't really understand some of the construction standards. And I think it would be valuable for them to understand what you've come up with. I don't know if it's something that gets circulated behind the scenes, but the commissioners are not part of that, and they're the ones that makes a lot of the decisions. I have two requests. One, now that you've got your 5-year plan going and all of this other work that you've been doing, which is all fabulous, I was going to suggest maybe a compliance report calendar, because it seems like we keep hearing about these reports that are required by different state entities, possibly even the county, and that we haven't done it for 10 years and we should have been doing it all this time. So maybe one of the things you can put on your list to do, I'm sure it's very long because you're moving soon, but that might be a good thing to do so that we don't miss these things. And then the last item is just a request for an update on whatever activity is going on with the IGA and the sewer and water. From looking at the Richfields Village Board information, apparently Hillwood is bringing a lawsuit against Richfield, which is a little concerning because that may mean that it will affect us too. And that was something that was discussed in a closed session on their, I think it was 18th of July meeting. So I think it would be good to know what's going on with that. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Anyone else would like to come forward to talk?
I'm Pamela Parrott. I live at West 202 North 11468 Merkle Drive. And I got a notice about my ditch. And I sent in a letter in regards to that. I filled in the ditch somewhat, but I have a drainage pipe that goes from one end of my lot through to the other end. I took pictures of it when it rained. I've lived there for 34 years. I've never had water in front of my house, ever. There's never been any drainage going down the front of my house. I also have letters from my neighbors that they have never had water in front of their house. The only reason why I did the landscaping in the first place was, number one, my husband, when he was still alive, the ditch is kind of on an angle, and the tractor, when it's on that angle, he almost tipped over. And that's when I took over. I was able to do the yard work. I'm able to do yard work. I'm not that old, but unfortunately, 5 years ago, my leg got crushed between my car and a 150 Ford truck. And because of that, I have no feeling from my knee down. When I cut the grass, now it's a little more difficult, and it's getting a little more difficult because when my leg goes against the tractor, I have no feeling. So I'm getting concerned that if all of a sudden in the future that I might tip over, or I might lose, because I don't have feeling. I don't know, I can't hold on to the tractor when it's kind of on an angle. So I put this safety measure in for me. I did not know it was going to cause problems because there's never any water in the ditch. But I got this letter stating that I did something wrong. So I'm here to hope that for my safety and so that I can stay in my home. I have done, because of my disability now, with my husband and myself, I have done handicap accessibility inside my home, and I'm doing handicap accessibility outside my home so that I can stay in my home as long as I can possibly stay there. So I'm appealing to you to have me be able to keep this safety measure on my front of my home so that I can stay safe. I don't know where to go from here now. That's my appeal.
Thank you for your comments. It's not on the agenda, so we cannot address it tonight.
I'm sorry, I was told.
It's not, you can speak tonight. I do not see that on the agenda, so will not be addressed tonight. Matt, I will allow you to talk offline and see if there's some resolution, because I don't know anything about this issue. If not, it will be on the September agenda. If it's something that requires us to take action, essentially, to get beyond an ordinance or whatever.
Because I was told that I would be on the agenda.
You are able to talk tonight, but your issue is not on the agenda. But now we know that you have a problem, okay? And I think I'll allow Matt to speak, but it's up to you to talk if you haven't already. And then we'll put it on the next agenda if we need to do board action, committee action.
Okay, so I'll wait until after all this is over with?
Yeah, that's fine.
Or
You
do I?
know, or if you want to call tomorrow, I think Kevin may have your contact information.
Yes, I talked to that gentleman there.
Okay,
So I
so,
should talk to him?
nope, just, I'll reach out to you tomorrow if we have your phone number. Do we have her phone number?
Yes. As you should have.
Yep,
Okay.
that'll be great. And then I can follow up with you tomorrow and we can come up with a plan.
Thank you for your comments. And if you, yeah, just leave us with that yellow slip, that would be great. Anyone else that would like to come forward? Jan?
Good evening, everyone. Jan Miller, W151 and 10297 Winslow Circle West. I just wanted to thank you to Matt and his team for putting these charts together, 5-year. It's so small, I can't read it anymore, but it's very, it's great, can really follow it. The item that I had a question on that I'd like you to elaborate on, it says, I believe, on the last item in green is intergovernmental, and it does list Richfield, I believe it says Boundary Road Agreement. So if you could touch on that, I don't know if it's connected to the IGA or not, and I'd like to hear more about that. And then I noticed you had a little item here, training, and I'm not sure what it all entails in here. Of course, there's safety and other things, but I just wanted to remind, because Matt's new and others, that other people from DPW, including, I believe, Scott, has been one that has attended Leadership Germantown in the past, and they are filling up their class this year. So that might be a consideration. It's 1 day a month from September to May. May is graduation. It's really not a full day of study, but it's great to for any kind of training and leadership. It really, really helps. And then there was a mild snafu on election signs just this past week. So I would appreciate if you would just review what we are and are not supposed to do on election signs, and where to put them, and what the what ordinance you're looking at, so that we do have the election coming up in November. So I'd appreciate that. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Trustee Miller. We will move on. We have no unfinished business, so moving on to new business A, resolution adopting the comprehensive tree plan, which we modified a bit since we had some significant discussion last month. Matt, I take you're taking that, right?
Yep, I'll take that. So attached to this item is a copy of the updated comprehensive tree plan. There is also a document that outlines some of the ordinance changes that would probably have to take place in order to eliminate some conflict and to create some clarifications if this was passed. And then the resolution itself. So in the write-up, I kind of described why we're at this point. We know that the committee required us to put together this plan after some coordination issues with the work last fall. And we brought it to the July committee. The intention, as it's kind of written up here and in the ordinance, is to produce a plan that deals with care, preservation, and I'm kind of quoting from the ordinance: care, preservation, pruning, planting, replanting, removal, or disposition of trees in public places, essentially. So we wrote the plan with that in mind. We brought it to the July committee and had some discussion. There wasn't a bunch of public input, but we did decide to keep it open for public input through the month of July. I didn't receive any public input other than supportive comments. So in that regard, we didn't address any specific issues from the public. I did circulate it again with the staff, and there were some modifications and changes and additions that came out of that. But the plan is essentially what it was when we looked at it in July. And again, I'm not planning to go through the whole thing unless you guys want to look at particular sections. But some of the highlights, I guess, of the plan are itemized here on the item write-up. It does create a tree board. That tree board is something that exists in the ordinance right now, But so it just puts a little backing behind that and suggests that in order to properly appoint a tree board, we probably need to modify the ordinance in another place to do that. But it does establish what the tree board is and what it does. It does create a permit process, and one of the changes I made was actually creating a permit document, an application that people could use. So that's one of the appendices on the plan now. That would be something that's managed by Public Works, and any work that was done on public trees by private citizens of adjacent properties to the right-of-way would be required to go through the permit process. It also contemplates that HOAs could be a permittee. So that's a fairly significant change. There's also communication standards, which were kind of the root of why this is on the agenda to begin with. And those are outlined there. The plan in general, it's a guide for Public Works on what to do, but it also can serve as expectations for the community and what to expect from us. And it's written kind of with that in mind. One of the things that was added was kind of expanding on the section for standards for new subdivisions and developers. So we incorporated a document that has been distributed to developers and made that an appendix to the plan and gave them just a little more to work with in terms of, the standards that the village would expect when it's reviewing landscape plans. And then there's a new list of trees. So that was unchanged from the list that we looked at in July. So that's a quick summary of the plan. And we're looking for the resolution to approve it. And I think if approved, two things. I'd probably bring back the ordinance changes to a subsequent meeting. It might not be the very next one, but sometime in the near future. And then we are still hoping to work on a planting contract for this fall. Not pruning necessarily, but planting. So if the committee felt strongly against that, I think that would be good to know tonight too, separate from the status of the adoption of the plan, because we would need to get going on that in order to make like the September agenda.
Okay, thank you, Matt. We'll get some committee input. I think Trustee Warren was not at the last meeting. We did talk about this plan in detail. And what did come out of that discussion was that we really like the fact that it is so detailed. And more is better than not enough. And it really does set the standard for how we're going to proceed with trees. With that said, I'll entertain comments, motions, whatever we might have. Trustee Warren.
I apologize, I missed the July meeting. Sounded like I missed a lot of fun. I know where we're at with this. I appreciate the effort that Matt put in it and the staff. It's a very detailed document. Just some general comments and then two comments I'd like to see if we could incorporate into the plan. So general comment is, yes, there's a lot of detail in it. And I think we tried to cram too much into this one document. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to vote in favor of this, but I just wanted to comment on this because I know that we'll have a chance to take a look at this further down the road. But I would have preferred to have the guide for Public Works as a separate document, internal, and then the guide for the residents as a separate document. Because the way I read this now, it got up to 29 pages because of this. And a resident reading this doesn't really need to know the requirements that that we're putting on the public's work staff. So I just felt it was just too muddled altogether. The tree board, I'll see how that goes, how it affects budget and schedule and staffing. I know it's a requirement. I still don't understand why we have budgets in this Appendix D. I don't know what purpose that serves. And it's going to be constant maintenance of the budgets every year. So I don't know what message we're trying to send to the residents by including the budgets. Is it like, look at how much we're spending, we're serious about this? And if that's what we want to do with it, okay, keep it in there. But in my opinion, I would keep the budgets out of this. And the last simple thing, Matt you and I talked about this, if we could hyperlink these ordinances and ANSI references that you have in the document, that would be helpful too for people who are using this.
Real quick on the ANSI, that is a proprietary document, so we probably can't link directly to it. But all the ordinances, I think we certainly could.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
And I'll just follow up with a comment. I wouldn't mind if the budgets were removed. I mean, that's a simple change, unless there's some specific reason you wanted them in there, Matt.
I think what we were thinking by including the budget is establishing the fact that if we want to maintain the cycle of maintenance that's necessary according to kind of generally accepted standards for tree care, that it's going to require additional funding to do so. And we put together that budget with the recommended cycle in mind. And there's a difference between what that is and, you know, what we've been getting historically. So it'd be a new commitment. And I think that's why it's in there.
But that's just for village board, basically, though. And for this committee, I mean, the residents can't really affect that. I mean, it's full transparency. So I mean, if it's in there, it's not going to hurt anything. But I do tend to agree. I don't know that it needs to be there. Other comments? I know we talked about it a lot last month, but anything new that, any new concerns or? If not, we'll entertain a motion to move this on to the village board.
Motion to adopt the comprehensive tree plan and move to the village board for approval.
Have a second? Further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Awarding, moving on to B, award of the Kinderberg splash pad repairs in the amount of $57,800.
So Gil, our Parks and Rec Director, has this item on the agenda and he's going to walk you guys through it.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Gil.
Thank you. Ever since I've been here, there's been some issues with the pump house there at the splash pad. DPW has done an excellent job of keeping it piecemeal together and functioning properly. But this led me to have discussions with the Parks and Recreation Commission over the future of the splash pad. There's been discussions on that, and there's ongoing discussions about the future of it. One thing that the Park Commission did agree upon is they wanted me to make sure that the pump house and the splash pad was functional for at least the next 5+ years. And so I reached out to, Scott and I met with Carico, and whom has done work in the village in the past and very trusted. And also I did want to expand. A couple years ago, I did a feasibility study on Kinderberg, and part of that feasibility study was an aquatic company called WTI, Water Technology Incorporated. And so some of the things in their notes are also included in parts that are needed. So the Parks Commission asked me to go before the board and ask for ARPA funding. And so that's what I did. So the project total is $57,800, but $55,000 would come through the ARPA budget. And I do have the additional $2,800 out of my recreation and maintenance expense for the spray pad, which is 105,910,000,1000. So there is money in the budget to fix up the parts and put in the parts that are needed. In your packet, I provided you with 3 quotes that I got for the same work. And Carico did come in at the cheapest at $57,800. CAS Commercial Aquatic submitted a quote for $61,150. and Spear Corporation provided a quote of $72,250. So not only are we getting a good company, but they were also the lowest in pricing as well. Also, I did want to point out that the 57,800 is only for the splash pad, mechanical room, and equipment. Also, what will have to be done is that the splash pad will have to be sandblasted and then coated with a sealant. All the cracks that are occurring in there need to be repaired, and then the pool will need to be repainted again. I did get a separate quote for that, and that is $30,250. Now, I'm not asking for that money today. I'm just asking for approval to move forward with the improvements needed to be made. That money, I believe, is being requested through Public Works for the painting project. And the two projects don't have to be done at the same time. It's critical this fall that we get the work done on the pump house, and then either late fall or early spring, if the paint job is approved, then they can come back in and do the paint job.
Yeah, Gil, I have a question. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know much about splash pads, but what you're really doing is, this is the guts of the entire operation, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what makes everything function and work.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Committee? Trustee Warren?
Gil, how long has this been up and running, the splash pad? How old are these parts?
I would say 20, 25 years.
2004 to 2005 it was built.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good run.
Yes.
Pretty good run on the parts, in your opinion?
Yes, yeah, very good. And like I said, DPW should be credited with also holding it together as well.
Baling wire and duct tape?
I guess so, yes.
You had mentioned here that we could save some money if we didn't repaint the surface.
Well, I met with the company that would paint as part of Caracal, so they're a part of them, and we talked. And originally there was discussion about just sandblasting it down to the bare concrete and sealing it and letting it go. But as it was pointed out, if you do that, then you're going to have to power wash it almost every other day to keep bacteria and all that down. Whereas painting, you don't have to do that as much.
So it sounds like that's off the table.
Right, at this
Okay.
point, yes.
Because I would have been concerned too, what that surface of the concrete was like. Is it a broom finish, which can be pretty rough to little feet? So that was a concern of mine too, but it's kind of a moot point now, I guess. All right, thank you.
I assume it's painted blue like water, right?
Well, right now we have multicolors in there,
Oh,
so we
okay.
could paint whatever
Get to
color.
know my
we
splash
want to.
pad.
I think it's 3 different colors, red, yellow, and blue, if I can remember correctly.
Right.
You've been in it, huh?
Many times.
Any more comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval to award the splash pad repairs to Caracal Aquatics for amount not to exceed 57,800 as presented.
Second.
Any further questions? Discussion?
I do have one, and that is, it said that the autofill solenoid in the domestic water line and well and electrical is not included in here. Is that something that Public Works is doing, or Water Department, or who's handling that part?
Yeah, that would be something that we'll have to do ourselves on the water line. I guess I'll have to confer with DPW and see if that's something that we would do, or they could help with.
Is it possible that those items are in relatively good condition? They're excluded, or?
She Corey from Carico was to do a thorough study on it, and she spent considerable time. So I can only assume that if these were of issues, she would have brought that up.
Okay.
Bill?
Yeah, I want to just call something out. So I'm on the Park and Rec Committee also. And so in Gil's letter, it says increase the life of the splash pad another 10 years. That's at the most, right? So we will get at least 5, right? And 10 would be best case scenario. This does not guarantee 10 more years of watery happiness in the summertime.
What's going to break down next? How does that work?
There's a lot, it's as Trustee Warren asked, it's old. I mean, the whole thing is getting, and we did look at several ways to approach the challenge we have with the splash pad. We can't tell you what is going to break down next, right? But we are looking, and if we expand the life another 5 years, we're looking at a splash pad now that's 25 to 30 years old.
Do people actually take out the whole splash pad, or is it just all the mechanical stuff that gets replaced?
It's the house, and it's the pipes that run under the splash pad that are of the particular challenge at this moment in time. My understanding is that there are also some electronical challenges inside the pump house itself.
So we worry about that in 5 to 10 years. Okay.
We should get at least 5 and maybe as many as 10.
Yeah, I think to jump in, I think that's what I've heard that's consistent with the approach that staff have been taking, that, initially there was a conversation about whether or not the splash pad would have a shorter life, and it was, we only needed to achieve 2 or 3 years, but I think it's been identified through various committees and whatnot that we need to be at 5+,
Mhm.
and this quote was put together with that in mind.
Bob?
Is this splash pad up and running through the summer? Has it been?
It is. It'll, the last day will be Labor Day.
Okay.
7 a.m.
So other than Phil using it, does it get a lot of use?
Well, Jan, obviously, she's smiling.
So it gets, and so, sorry, but you asked. So it gets far more use than it actually should get. So I think we're supposed to have a limit of 12 children in the splash pad technically at one time, and we actually get buses coming to the splash pad. It's a huge draw.
Any further comments? If not, we will vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gil. Moving on to C, authorization to temporarily overfill staffing in the water utility until December.
Until December. So there's a chain of events happening with staff, and this is a reaction to that. The water utility foreman has submitted his retirement paperwork, and he'll be retiring effective in December. There's a gentleman that has moved a step up and is kind of shadowing him for eventual replacement in that foreman position. So he's been pulled off of kind of the line operator duty. And in order to keep the line staff level functioning and working at full capacity, we're hoping to overfill that operator position for a period of, once this is approved through December when Scott retires.
When we talk overfill, so you're hiring somebody for this person's position now? Or
Yeah, we would,
quickly?
after
Yeah.
village board approval, then we would
Okay.
post it and try to hire it.
And my only other question after reading this was, where is the money coming from? The $35,856?
It's coming from the utility fund.
Okay,
And it was reviewed by finance. They didn't object to it, but I did want to be transparent and have the cost there. We just feel that it's worth the cost in order to keep kind of the whole system working seamlessly, an important system like this. And there's a lot going on in the water utility in terms of projects and startups and things like that, where having trained staff available, I think, is going to be pretty important in the next few months.
How long is the operator, who is the heir apparent, how long has that operator been with the village water utility?
15.
Wow, that's good. Yeah, it's nice to promote from within if you can, somebody knows the system. Committee?
I'll move approval of the temporary overfill of position to the water utility.
No comments? Bill?
So I have a couple of comments. So you've identified the successor, and so what if somebody applies that is actually a better fit for the position? So what are we gonna do?
I don't believe we actually have to post it, and I think we can promote just internally.
Okay,
So that would
Okay.
be the process that we intend. This gentleman has been, like Paul just indicated, he's been an operator for a long time. He has some crew leader and leadership experience and has been already in the process of shadowing Scott, the gentleman who's retiring. So it's been kind of an heir apparent sort of situation. And I think we would go directly to an internal
Okay.
promotion.
and so is the overlap time a true 4 months?
It will be from the point of village board approval to his retirement date, to Scott's retirement date.
And when is the retirement date, please?
Do you have the exact date, Paul? Oh, that's right. Yeah, so it's roughly middle of December, in terms of off the books entirely, if I remember right. And then he'll actually be in the office a shorter amount of time because he's using leave that has accrued.
So in my experience, which is not the public sector, this is common to have two people in one positions, but I usually don't see it for 3.5 months, particularly if we have a well-qualified individual, which you're saying we do, ready to step into the job. So it's somebody that's been doing the job for 15 years, and then we need to train them for an additional 3.5 months. So, and yet they're well qualified.
We're not, I mean, we are concerned about the gentleman that is, appears to be the heir apparent to the foreman role. There are a lot of intricacies and nuances to that role that we want him to be able to concentrate on, more of the crew leader management side of things and that perspective in the water utility that he probably doesn't have as much experience with. But we also want to ensure that at the operator level, we're not losing a step and falling behind. And I think that might be the bigger factor in the request, is that we don't want to lose that operational capability with our operator level staff.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I respect that. I respect our employees. However, I can't support this.
Bob?
So kind of playing off of Trustee Hudson's observation. So this person, Scott, I believe, is retiring? Is that his name?
Not this Scott.
Not this Scott? Okay. Would he consider helping out part-time after retirement? I'm just wondering if that would be a less expensive way to try to address a transition.
Paul could address that, but I've observed him talking about his retirement date. And I think
Okay.
it's a pretty definite end that he's anticipating.
Okay.
Just something to mention that we might be missing is the retirement of the foreman is being replaced from someone internal. That position is what we have to fill. And what we're trying to do is build, part of our succession plan is bring in new staff when you have all that institutional knowledge. 3 months, honestly, to me is not enough. I mean, this is years in the making to try to get someone up to speed and all the operation procedures of our utilities. So you bring someone off the street, that 3 months is important. And the foreman is actually, we're putting him into the training, the lead training of this new person that we want to hire.
I have a question.
Rick?
So Paul, the successor person, he's going to stay at his current wage until the foreman retires? Is that
Yes.
right? That's what I thought.
His current wage.
His current wage, right.
Mhm.
So we're not increasing his wage. We're just adding another person to the,
To replace
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
but it's not the foreman position. It's the.
No, it's a
operator
labor,
position.
it's a labor operator position.
I get my microphone on. I totally have no problem with this, and I kind of agree with you. I mean, 3 months doesn't sound like a long time,
It's not.
especially by the time this finally gets approved by the village board and that. So I do support this. I like the idea that we have somebody that knows the village water system that's capable of stepping into this new role, and is going to have to focus and concentrate time on that, to learn that in the short period of time, while we can get hopefully a good hire or somebody new in the operator position. So I think it's fine personally. Do we have a motion? Any more comments?
The vacancy, there was another position that was open, so we've had kind of a recruitment and we have a list of candidates. So it's possible after village board that we could hire fairly quickly off of that recruitment that already took place.
Any other comments? And we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? One in opposition.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to awarding the Fireman's Park restroom interior and exterior painting.
So this is a 2024 project in the parks capital budget. It's going along with a number of other little projects to get that building up to speed. We did have a couple quotes that are listed in the packet. Maycorp, who we've all become familiar with in the last few months, was the low bidder again. And we're requesting that the painting contract for the restroom facility be awarded to them.
Committee?
Move approval of the contract to make Corp LLC not to exceed $9,082 for the Fireman's Park restroom painting.
Second.
Discussion?
A-Corp's been doing a good job for us.
Yep, they've been working on a number of projects, and even where we've identified issues on some projects, they've been very responsive in order to correct those. So we're very happy with them.
Further comments? We'll vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Item F, award of library cupola roof leak repair to Nofke Roofing in the amount not to exceed $23,500.
Yeah, so Scott did a really good job writing this one up and providing some of the history associated with this. But the roof was replaced in 2021, and there were some leaks that occurred, especially like in the shoulder seasons, spring and fall. They'd get some leaking that would occur. There's been concern about damage to insulation, drywall, potentially mold if this were to continue. They've had this contractor out to do investigations into the shingling that they did at no cost on a number of different occasions. But we're to the point now where we believe that the repair is actually associated with some of the flashing around the cupola. And we have some history that's outlined in the write-up here with Nofke Roofing, who specializes in this kind of work and some of the investigative side of these roof leaks, because they're always a little hard to identify. to come up with a plan to repair this leak at the cupola by pulling back some of the shingles, doing some testing and investigation, and then finding the proper repair. Though, we're past any warranty period that existed on that roof with the company that did it originally. And it's really kind of a separate issue anyway. They were primarily shingles. This is more, like I said, associated with the flashing at the cupola. So we're requesting the award to NOFKI in that amount, $23,500. It's worth noting that this is coming from a capital account that was originally allocated for Hop Strauss Park roof shelter. That work came in under budget, so there's room available in this budget. And Scott and myself have worked with Gil and the library to clear the way for the library repair to take place out of this funding.
Bob?
So does this proposal include additional investigation for the leak, or have we done that already? We know what the problem is. They're just going to jump on it and fix it.
No, there's a number associated with the investigation. So the investigation has not taken place. We believe the issue is in the flashing around the cupola. We could get in there and identify that that's not the case. That's always a possibility. But we feel pretty strongly that that is what it will uncover. So I guess the question is, could this exceed the amount that we're asking for today? It could exceed the amount we're asking for today, but it could also come in under the amount that we're asking for today if the investigation is quick and identifies the issue right away.
Just nervous that
They're complicated systems and it's not always apparent.
trying to find these leaks. All of a sudden you're chasing your tail and your budgets start to get blown out of the water. So this is a not to exceed contract or a lump sum or?
Yeah, I think it says not to
Not to
exceed. here.
exceed. Do you have a line item where they indicate how much for investigating?
Scott, you want to come up?
Get Scott up here. Those are such nebulous line items, it's easy to go over on things like that. Well, we spent another day trying to find it.
You're off.
See, it's been a long time since I've been up here.
Yeah.
Just to kind of build off of what Matt is saying and again, being the contact with Ben out on the project himself, Ben Nofke. This project does most likely have enough money. What they're going to do is they're going to strip an area about 20 feet around the cupola. They're going to look for the water trail. But there is funding. I can't tell you dollar per dollar, but he's got time built in that if he has to remove the exterior of the walls of the cupola, look in the venting. This project also includes a newer finial, a larger finial. So it's really looking at all of the components around the cupola. Based on where the water is coming in to the building, it's high. It's up that high. So I think working closely with Ben, we're in a position where we're going to find it in that area. And this budget is built with those hours included.
Thank you.
I know you're concerned, but I think we're going to be pretty good.
Personal experience.
Yep. Understand.
Phil?
I guess two kind of separate questions. Nofke was not the original vendor of the roof.
Integrity Roofing was the original installer of the shingled portion of the roof 3 years ago. And again, Matt said it, I'll reiterate, they've done an amazing job coming back, trying to find this issue every time they're looking for the issue with the shingles. It's not in a shingling area. The shingles are testing out fine. We really do believe it's a flashing up against the cupola wall. But Nofke was not the original installer. We have dealt with Nofke. Some members of the committee might remember about 13 years ago when we first took over buildings and grounds, we had moldy walls on the inside of the lobby, and we found some construction errors and worked really closely with Nofke at solving that issue. which is why I have a level of confidence with them that they're going to be able to do this work here.
So does Integrity not do this type of work?
Um,
Or or so why did we? So no, we didn't get any competitive bids, so.
We didn't get any
So-
competitive bids. I think to answer the question that there are other large roofing contractors out there that deal with this, Christensen and Michelson and some others. My level of comfort, because of the history that I have at the entry and what we were able to solve with Nofke, is why I started looking closely at this with him. I guess if the committee and board want to, have us go out and talk to other companies, we can certainly do that. It's just a level of comfort with the level of experience they have in solving these issues over the original contractor.
Nofke Roofing is a great firm with a stellar reputation.
Yep.
They are also at the very high end of the price range too.
They are, and that's why they don't win our regular roofing bids.
Okay, thank you.
Bob?
So it sounds like we think the leak is outside of the project limits that Integrity had done just 3 years ago. So it's somewhere else. That's why there's no warranty from Integrity on this.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Committee? We have a motion?
Make a motion to award the contract to Nofke Roofing in an amount not to exceed $23,500.
I'll second.
Further discussion? I think we had it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next roof. Award of Fireman's Park Standing Seam Roof Project to JK Contractors not to exceed $19,060.
Yeah, so this is a project that was identified in the 2024 capital budget. We were able to get the two quotes that are identified here for the replacement of the asphalt roof on that restroom shelter with a metal roof, and are requesting award of the contract to the low bidder, who is JK Contractors.
Committee?
Move. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to award the Fireman's Park Standing Seam Roof Project to JK Contractors in the amount not to exceed $19,060.
Second.
Discussion? Comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on to G, review of development handbook update.
All right, we brought this item forward after a lengthy process in the engineering division to update the development handbook. The development handbook is kind of a guide for its standards for developers when they're constructing utilities and roads in the village of Germantown. And it was last updated in 2020. That's getting to be quite a while. And we have also a new staff in the engineering division. So we thought it was appropriate that the development handbook was reviewed. We went through a pretty lengthy internal process involving the engineering staff and using some of their expertise and experience to recommend some changes, as well as input from the field. So we brought in the superintendents, Scott and Paul and Tim all had contributions to the changes in the development handbook. Attached is the revision itself. There's also a red line version, so I'm sorry, the packet size probably got really big with the tree plan and this in there twice. But also a document that just outlines some of the changes that occurred. So instead of having to read through line by line, the handbook itself, you can see how changes were made and what they are. In a lot of cases, It was swapping out vendors that are recommended or required for different vendors that have come in favor over the years. And in some places, there's different techniques that are suggested. But we brought it for a presentation today to get it in your hands. If you wanted to take some time to look at it, you know, I anticipate then that we'd bring it back to the board or to the committee next month for approval. Or if you have any questions about it today, we could discuss those as well.
Go ahead, Bob.
First comment, the change log that you include is very helpful. I'd like to see that on more documents, you know, just save us a lot of time going right to that item. Just in general, was there one area that we really changed a lot?
No, I think there were probably more changes in the water utility than any of the other sections. But I would say they were spread fairly evenly throughout the document. And I don't think there were substantial changes. I mean, certainly some of the vendors matter and that's important stuff. But I don't think requirements are changing to a large degree. We also want this to become like a regular process where the handbook is looked at once a year at a certain time of year. And that way we don't build up a series of 20 or 25 changes and it's just small little onesie twosie types of updates that we can get approved. So
I know that we have a continuity issue here. Everybody's pretty new with this. And you sought input from the experts, those in the field and Kevin and you in that. Was there by chance a log through the years of what staff in the field saw was not working or issues that were created that we could use to make changes?
I don't know if there was a log kept of what had transpired in years past. I think what we intend to do going forward is something along those lines where we identify issues that come up based on, you know, how things are inspected on projects and issues are identified. We have the opportunity to go back to this development handbook, reference it, make sure that it was followed appropriately. And if not, is it the fault of the handbook? Is it a fault of the standard that we created that that caused the issue? And then we can log it. So when we do our review once a year, the item is there and we don't have to spend a lot of time on it.
Perfect. I look forward to reading every word. Thank you.
I made the comment earlier that I know I only got through a fourth of this up to this point. So we could give us another shot at this next month. Maybe we can come to some conclusions or input, if that's okay with the committee.
Yeah, I may just, depends how much, just work directly with Matt or give him my opinion.
I think that's a great idea.
Just to save the
Yeah.
board time.
And then come back with any revisions, but at least it gives us a chance to read through it if we have any questions
Yeah.
from our perspective and what we've heard, you know, over the years.
Yep.
So that was for discussion only, so we can move on to Department of Public Works, 5-year strategy.
Okay. So I've talked about this in my director, what do I call it? Director report for several months out of the months that I've been here, but it's been about 7 months that I've been here. And I've been doing a lot of observation and learning about how things work here. I think, you know, obviously the good news is that there's a lot of really awesome things happening in public works and we've got a really good staff. So I think the department is strong in that regard. And I think we'll have an opportunity here to get stronger. We've also just in, you know, 7 months time, since I've been here, had the opportunity to make some effective changes already in terms of like staffing the engineering department, which was, I think, substantially understaffed for quite a period of time. You know, we're nearing the finish line on our new facility, which I'll talk about in my report in a little bit here. And we've worked through some difficult community issues like the tree plan and driveways and other things. So I think there's been some limited success so far, but I want to kind of set the stage for, the next 5 years and have some sort of plan that we're working on to guide the department. And it's really kind of for two different reasons. I think we need to have a system in place. There are systems that are in place now, but I think what we need to work toward is something that can be passed on and made part of, say a technology system for asset management, where there's a lot of information that is, in disparate locations in people's heads, and we need to find a way to make that part of an actual process in Public Works, so that when folks like Scott and Paul and Tim, who are all, they've been here a long time, and are, in that 5-year window of wanting to move on to bigger and better things in retirement, that we've got something there, for these new people that step up and take on these responsibilities. So I think it's good succession planning. And then I think, we really just need to focus on asset management. So a lot of what the plan is just understanding what we have, understanding what condition it's in, and then coming up with a plan for how to deal with it. But I think like bigger picture, we just want to work towards something with some intent, which can be difficult, especially, Scott and I have actually had some conversations about this, and actually Kevin and I too, recently, about all the demands that are on us, like all the time throughout the course of a day and a week. So taking the time to make, the kinds of progress and improvements that I'm kind of suggesting here are not easy and will take time and some energy to carve out of already busy days. But I think to have some goals in mind along the lines of what I talked about are important. So that's why I put this together, and I want to run it by you folks and gather your feedback. And I'm hoping in the near future here to be talking to our staff about it too, and making a similar sort of presentation to them down the road.
Well, this is great, Matt. It's nice to have a road plan like this, so to speak. I have a question. So the gray is coming up, obviously, if it's in the dates for next year, which are in blue. And so there's going to be a plan in place for each of those gray bars, correct? Like telematics and asset assessment. I mean, it's a timeline, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, the spreadsheet document is a timeline. Now, I will say that things are prone to shifting, one way or the other.
Sure.
And how I would have done this plan 3 months ago versus how I would do it now have already changed. So, the plan has to be flexible and adaptable, and I wouldn't want you to, approve like this plan the way it's written right now, but just understand that, I think it's important to have a plan and to work toward it, but then also to be flexible enough where you can shift priorities and move things around. Some things move left, some things move right on the timeline. Things come up that you hadn't anticipated. We'll have to deal with all that stuff too. But it's a guide, and it gives us, if you break it apart into like 1-year chunks, we've got a handful of things that we want to accomplish in the course of a year.
What do you need from us tonight?
It's just a presentation,
So
but
we can take a look at this and come back to you with questions, and you'll.
yeah, come back to me with questions. If you'd like me to bring it back for discussion again at some point, I could do that too.
Okay, committee, what do you think? Bob?
This goes hand in hand with the CIP.
Yeah, a lot of it is lined up pretty well with that. That's kind of the idea is we're lining up priorities across the department and across plans.
So this just gets into more detail, at least on the Public Works end of things.
Yep.
How do you want feedback?
Whatever form you'd like to provide it.
Okay.
I mean, we can do it in a discussion forum like this, or I'd be happy to sit down and talk to you about it, or a phone call or an email. I think we're open to input on it.
Yeah, we don't need like committee to,
Well, I think you're in a position with your background in engineering to provide a really good look at this from your perspective. And we'll all look at it, of course, from ours as both residents and our longevity on committees and that. But I think, why don't you two just communicate if you have
Sure.
certain questions or comments? And then, yeah, let's see this back here in a couple months and just see where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, there are certainly aspects of it that are engineering related, but it's a management tool.
Mhm.
So I think we could all speak pretty.
Participate in that, yeah. Well, thank you for this, Matt. It's really nice to see something this organized.
Yeah,
It really is.
just a quick comment, and that is on the same level, is that it's nice to see this roadmap. We haven't had this in the past. And it's identifying things that you want to do. The timeline isn't as important to me because at least you have an idea of what you want to work on. We can always adjust the timeline
Yeah.
on that. So thank you.
Okay, moving on to director's report. What are we highlighting this time?
All right. So just looking at what's highlighted in green, and I guess before that in general, a lot of our summer construction work has ended up being kind of shaded towards the late summer and fall. So there's a lot of work that's happening now, and more work that's going to be happening before the end of the summer. So I just wanted to highlight some of those things for you, because you'll end up seeing them pretty soon here if you haven't already. But we have a water main relay project in Glenwood Park and a couple other locations that began, I guess, earlier this week, late last week, that will move pretty quickly through completion. And it's actually lining up pretty well. This is a project that's been out there for a while and caused some coordination issues last year, I believe, with the road paving program. Where now we've got things lined up pretty well where we're going to be able to do this water main work and then do the top course of asphalt in these same areas that we weren't able to do. And we actually had to hold the contractor off now for over a year on.
Wow.
So it'll be nice to wrap that up. We finished our Division Road community engagement project and are just waiting on a final report from Kapoor. We are expecting that really any day now, and we'll plan a presentation for the next Public Works meeting and then Village Board. How that shook out is that the community kind of lined up pretty strongly behind a kind of a middle of the road hybrid approach to what we want to do at Division Road. In the meetings, the presentations were kind of on the cheap end. We'll just do a mill and overlay of what's existing. On the other end of the spectrum, a full reconstruct with urban cross sections. And people said they didn't really like either of those, but some combination of different approaches throughout the stretch of road is what they looked for. And I think kind of an intermediate cost is what they were looking for too. So that's what the report will highlight, and our approach going forward on that.
Were they looking for multi-use trails, bike accommodations? Were you getting that feedback?
I think there were a few people that talked about bikes, but I think by far, what people talked about more was vehicle traffic. And, it was, the comments were just heavily shaded towards vehicles instead of pedestrians. But that is certainly an improvement that we want to make. We've been talking internally about, well, okay, this is where the public landed on this particular issue. But then there's also, the engineering perspective on what's best for the road for the next 20 years and making safety improvements where that's possible. And I think that's certainly possible along the stretch of road. And then there's ultimately what you folks will decide to do with it in terms of funding levels and your own desires for the road. So it's kind of a three-pronged approach to how we're going to, triangulate and come up with the right solution for the road.
Okay.
So I talked a little bit about the road program. The road program is starting here probably in later August. for the 2024 roads. And then once that water main work is complete, the 2023 road program will finish off officially as well. The 2024 seal coating has begun. Chip seal was completed on Lilac and on a section of Holy Hill Road. We are anticipating that the microsurface and the GSB 88 will be taking place here in the last half of August. We are kind of on a time-sensitive mission to get the microsurface done on Maple, right? River, because of the school.
Sure. Mhm.
I think I get those two mixed up almost every time I mention them. Yeah, and then just scrolling down, I heard a mention about the Richfield IGA. My update in the report regarding the Richfield IGA is that we know that Richfield is proceeding with the acquisition of the right-of-way for the utilities, but that's about the extent of how far they're going to take their effort. And then the project is sitting and waiting for them to get a committed developer. And that's all the information I have on that one. Looking at the department update, kind of toward the bottom of the report, we are anticipating hires coming on board for the mechanic position. I've mentioned that a few times in previous reports, but that's been a very difficult one to hire for. And it's been open almost the whole time I've been here, I think since January. So it'll be great to get that hired. The second note here, it's not highlighted, but I think it's worth mentioning, is we're going to be bringing a policy forward to GGF that we think will help us with recruiting efforts for positions that require a CDL. The mechanic is one of those, where the village fronts the cost for CDL licensure for hires that don't have the qualification. We would still require it in our postings and attempt to hire people that do have CDLs, but because of the changes in the process for CDLs and the additional schooling and cost that individuals have, the types of individuals that are applying for our positions in local government and public works probably aren't going to put up the $5,000 or so that's needed nowadays to get a CDL. Whereas if you're like an over-the-road trucker, you have an opportunity to make quite a bit of money at a cost, of course, to your time. But I think at least having the opportunity or the option available to us to pay for those CDLs and then get a commitment from the individual to work with us for a period of 3 years with kind of gradually reducing responsibility, like should they leave, that they would have to pay us back for some of that license. Our move at DPW is really going to get underway. There's a fair amount of equipment that's already over there right now, but we're anticipating that Donjas Bay Road and Town 9 Road, which is the road coming off of Donjas Bay back to the facility, will be cured and to the point that we can allow the heavier traffic. So beginning next week, we've targeted as the start of our really heavy effort in terms of move to get into that facility, and then hoping to operate out of it very soon after the Labor Day holiday. So it's going to be a quick couple of weeks for our department, and I think we're going to be very busy with that move. I walked through the building today, and it's looking amazing. There's really not much work left on the interior that you would notice necessarily, unless you're looking really closely and we're familiar with some of the punch list items and that sort of stuff. But the facility looks great. We are tentatively planning a ribbon cutting on the 17th at 5:30, and you'll be getting an invite for that here in the next couple days, as well as down the road a little bit into October the 26th, an open house event for the community to come and look through the facility as well. Maple Road, it wasn't on any of the items above, but I wanted to mention that that is being reconstructed this summer. We're anticipating that traffic control is going to be in place here in late August, like the last couple days of August, and then the construction on Maple Road will start in September. That's a fairly quick project as well. We're expecting a 3 or 4 week schedule for that. That will be from the freeway bridge south to Appleton.
Matt, if I might mention, we talked today about the resident that had an issue with drainage there. I did talk to him again today, and if somebody could follow up with him, I'm sure you have his phone number, but I have it too.
Okay.
And it seems to be more of a ditch issue.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we can do, but I did promise him I would pass that on to you. And I know he did meet with Kevin, I believe already, or not met with him, but talked to him for sure.
Okay, yeah, Kevin and I talked about it after you and I spoke, so I think we're familiar with the situation, and we'll give him a call.
Great, thank you.
Last thing I wanted to mention is just another reminder that we have rate increases forthcoming for water step 2 from the PSC order. Going back a couple years, once Tower 4 and the Goldendale Booster are online, we're able to put those rates into effect. So that will probably be first quarter next year. And then the village board has already approved the sewer rate increase as well for first quarter next year.
Okay, great. Great update. Anybody have anything else on the committee? Bob?
How's Lannon and Maple going? I mean, it seems like every other week I'll see activity out there. To my impression, they're really not hitting it that hard. Are there any issues that that's conveying to you?
No, actually, I've felt they've been working pretty consistently out there, and we're on schedule there. So I know there's the biggest problem that's hit our radar, I think, is just some coordination with some utilities in terms of getting things out of the way, and then also some of the signal operations during the construction have had to be modified, and we've had to go out there a couple mornings and cycle it through because we've had traffic backing up onto the freeway a couple times. And then that may have happened to a small degree this morning, but I think for the most part, those issues have been resolved. It should wrap up here in the next handful of weeks, and no, we haven't experienced that.
Okay, then on the complaint log, most of the complaints are under street miscellaneous, and you have a separate line item that's street potholes. So usually that's what most of the complaints are. So what would be the other miscellaneous complaints on streets?
It's funny. I try to create categories that capture most of the things, and then somehow, inevitably, when I add this stuff up at the end of the month, everything ends up in miscellaneous. But it's, we've got some creative complaints. I mean, it could be just, oddball things that we hadn't anticipated. I don't have it in front of me to go back and look at exactly what those 5 were.
If it actually, seriously, if it would be out in my area, probably be another dead tree falling on the road.
We should have a category for that.
Probably should.
No, but we do, Linda keeps really good notes on the call, on the calls that come in. So I could go in and identify, if I looked in the notes section of the spreadsheet that we track these on, what those were specifically.
Okay.
So
I assume if it was a reoccurring item, it would create its own line item then.
yeah,
It's just
my hope is, because we're still relatively new into using this categorization in our complaint log. My hope is that we can identify those things that where if they are recurring a handful of times, that we just create a category and we don't always bump them into miscellaneous.
Very helpful, though. I like it. It's your,
Just one thing to that, Matt has done a very good job of listing a lot of the categories of the calls that I do receive from residents. Yes, there are miscellaneous because they just don't fall in, and they're just kind of, it's not like you said one specific thing, it's just an odd thing that happened to come up, but those are detailed in those notes. But he's done a wonderful job with listing all that, because that is the discussion that we had about miscellaneous calls, just kind of, we like them categorized, and we do the best that we can for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay, with that, we'll look at our next meeting date. It will be the week of Labor Day. And it would be the Wednesday, the 4th. Does that work for everyone? Same time, 5:30, okay? Okay, you have it, Bob? You're okay with that? September 4th, 5:30. Okay, perfect. And with that, we will close this meeting at 6:50 PM. Thank you, everyone.
The iron part.